Okay, let's talk about gold. In a world full of crypto and instant digital payments, why is everyone suddenly obsessed with this ancient, shiny metal? Prices are hitting record highs, and it seems like everyone, from central banks down to regular folks, is buying it up. So, what's the deal? Why is this simple yellow element still humanity's ultimate prize?
To really get this, you first have to wrap your head around just how ridiculously rare gold is. I want you to imagine something. If you could take every single ounce of gold ever mined in all of human history and melt it all down into one giant block, you would get this. A cube just 22 meters on each side. That is it. That's all the gold we have. The entire world's supply could fit inside a 7-story building.
So what does that even mean for us? Well, if you took that entire cube and divided it up equally among every single person on Earth, we'd each get about 30 grams. That's the weight of maybe 6 wedding rings. This incredible, mind-blowing scarcity, that's the first major clue to unlocking the mystery of its value.
But being rare isn't the whole story. So how did this specific element, out of all the 118 on the periodic table, end up becoming the universal symbol of wealth? It's almost like there was a contest for the world's best money, and gold just won. Let's play detective and see how.
All right, first up, let's just get rid of the obvious ones. The gases? Yeah, no, you can't exactly make a coin out of oxygen, right? They're invisible, they just float away. Totally useless. Then let's look at the metals on the far left side of the table. Your alkali and alkaline earth metals. Think lithium, sodium, stuff like that. These guys are just way too reactive. I mean, some of them literally burst into flames or react violently with water. Not exactly what you want jangling around in your pocket. Okay, next on the chopping block, the elements way down at the bottom. A lot of these are radioactive, which means they decay over time and literally turn into other elements. Can you imagine putting one currency in your wallet and pulling out a totally different one later? So no. Then you've got your super common metals in the middle. Sure, iron's abundant, but it rusts. Copper's plentiful, but it tarnishes and turns green. And other elements, like osmium, are just too rare. We're talking mostly found in meteorites rare. So, after all that, we're left with just a handful of precious metals in the final round. Platinum is a great candidate, but its melting point is insanely high, over 1,700 degrees Celsius. Ancient civilizations just couldn't work with that. Silver was gold's biggest competitor for centuries, for sure, but it has a fatal flaw. It tarnishes. It loses its shine. And that's where gold comes in. It was the Goldilocks choice. Rare, but not impossibly rare, incredibly stable and non-reactive, beautiful, and crucially easy to work with. It was just right. So, gold basically won the chemical beauty pageant. But how did it go from being the perfect element for money to becoming the actual backbone of the entire global economy? This is where the story really gets interesting.
For a huge chunk of history, the world operated on what was called the gold standard. The idea was actually pretty simple. Instead of people lugging around heavy, risky gold bars, countries would just lock up all their gold in super secure vaults. Then, they'd issue paper banknotes that were essentially just IOUs, a promise that you could, at any time, exchange that piece of paper for a specific amount of real, physical gold.
Yeah, for that whole system to work, you obviously need a lot of gold. And for most of history, there just wasn't enough to go around. Then, in the mid-1800s, everything changed. Bam! Massive gold deposits were discovered in California, Australia, and South Africa, kicking off the great gold rushes. This sudden flood of gold fueled the massive explosion of global trade, building cities like San Francisco and Melbourne, and funding giant projects like America's first transcontinental railroad.
Okay, so that's the history lesson, but the gold standard has been gone since the 1970s. So why on earth are prices hitting all-time highs today? The answer lies in what happened after we left gold behind.
Just take a look at this chart. It's pretty wild. Since countries disconnected their currencies from gold back in the 70s, the value of that paper money has absolutely cratered against the metal. The British pound has lost 95% of its purchasing power relative to gold. The US dollar lost over 85%. Even the notoriously stable Swiss franc has lost 2/3 of its value. The message is crystal clear. While governments can print money into oblivion, gold holds its value.
And you know what? It's not just regular people noticing this. We're talking about central banks, the institutions that manage entire national economies. For 30 years, they put all their trust in U.S. government debt as the world's safest asset. But look what happened in 2022. For the first time, global central banks started buying more gold than U.S. bonds. That is a massive vote of no confidence in traditional financial systems and a huge vote of confidence in gold.
So where is all this demand for a safe asset coming from? Well, just follow the money. There are about 60 million millionaires in the world, and nearly half of them are in the United States. When you control trillions of dollars, your biggest question isn't how do I make more money? It's how do I protect the money I already have from losing its value? And for them, gold is the answer.
But our obsession with this metal comes at a cost. The gleaming bar and a central bank vault and the ring on a finger, they only tell half the story. To understand gold fully, we have to see where it comes from. And it turns out there are two vastly different realities.
Believe it or not, about 80% of the world's gold is now extracted in these massive, high-tech industrial mines. In many cases, the work is done by operators sitting in a safe control room using joysticks to control robotic machinery deep underground. It's almost like playing a video game.
But that other 20%, that's a different world entirely. This is artisanal mining. Here, around 20 million people, often without helmets or proper tools, descend into these dangerous, hand-dug shafts. To separate the tiny flakes of gold from the ore, they often use toxic mercury with their bare hands, breathing in poisonous fumes every single day.
And for this back-breaking, life-threatening work, what do they earn? As little as $4 to $5 a day. That's less than 1/1000th of the value of that very same gold on the international market. Many are trapped in terrible debt cycles, borrowing money for tools and food and spending their entire lives trying to pay it back.
So given this dark human cost and all the modern financial assets we have, why does our fundamental trust in gold persist? Because ultimately, gold isn't an investment for getting rich. It's something much more fundamental. It's humanity's ultimate insurance policy. Take what happened after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. It's the perfect illustration of this. In parts of Sumatra, Indonesia, entire villages were wiped out. People lost their homes, their jobs, their access to banks. But many had their family's wealth stored in the one thing that survived, their gold jewelry. They used these chains, bracelets, and rings as currency to buy food, supplies, and rebuild their lives from nothing. And that really gets to the final crucial point. Gold's enduring power isn't just about its shine or its scarcity, it's about trust. It's a form of value that exists completely outside of any government, any bank, or any corporation. So it leaves us with a fundamental question to think about. In a world of growing uncertainty, when all other systems fail, what do we truly trust?